Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we welcome Daniel O'Shaughnessy to the show, a mindset coach, nutritionist, and author who is here to have a conversation with us about self-love and body dysmorphia. Inside, we explore how to break free from toxic relationship patterns and stop searching for love in all the wrong places, even when wrong feels oh so right. Daniel will share how he did just that and explain how shadow work can help. We'll also peel back the layers of body dysmorphia, what this is, how these perceptions form, and the ways it can impact our dating lives. Through this, we'll learn not only how to reimagine our relationship with our emotional body, but also with our physical one. And if that ain't enough, we'll journey into the realm of mental health and plant medicine. Daniel will reveal what his experiences with psychedelics have taught him about healing, transformation, and the powerful shifts that have happened. So, if you're ready to challenge your old beliefs, embrace every part of you, and step into a more fulfilled way of living and loving, this episode is for you. Let's do this, flirties. Time to meet Daniel.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, on the show today is nutritionist, mindset coach, and author Daniel O'Shaughnessy to have a conversation with us about dating, of course, and also body dysmorphia. Hello, Daniel, and welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're going to do it. We're going to bring the BFE, Big Flirt Energy. You clocked in, I clocked in, and we're going to have a fun conversation today for the Flirties.
Yep. Perfect.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so getting into a little bit of your origin story first, nutritionist, mindset coach, and author. Have you always done this work, or did this work kind of call you into it?
I think it gradually crept up on me. I went through the standard university route, and I ended up working in a drug addiction center for a number of years, and that then piqued my interest in nutrition. Long story short, I just retrained, become a nutritionist, and went down the path of it's called functional medicine, working with the whole body and making people healthy. And then I also started seeing gaps in it and thinking, well, this needs to, in two ways. It wasn't so comprehensive for the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
And also it was neglecting parts of whole health, such as like addressing mindset and addressing trauma. And then I had to have that hugely honest conversation with myself. And, I couldn't be the person preaching about health or wellness if I had my own skeletons in the closet.
Sure.
And, there was plenty, I was, there I was on Instagram with my like green juice here and there, but I was covering up a load of stuff, and it was a lot of shame, trauma, all around being gay. But, on a lot under the surface was how I viewed my body, and also what I was doing to my body in effectively to make myself look better, such as using anabolic steroids and extreme dieting, and really just never really happy with the way I viewed myself. But I never really connected the two. And so I went on this kind of 4 or 5 year, that's called changing my mindset journey. And that involved, I know we're going to talk about it a lot. I was in a lot of therapy, but also plant medicine really woke me up to what I now view as whole health. And that's now changed the way I work with people. And also it's, it's given me myself back, and I feel more comfortable in my own. And so.
Well, I love that. And we're going to hear more of your story. I think you're already alluding to, teasing two of the big themes that we're going to be talking about on the show today, body dysmorphia and overall healing, but getting into a little bit of your plant medicine journey too. Yeah, I can, it sounds like you were talking the talk, right? But not necessarily walking
the walk. And I mean, aren't our consciences so annoying sometimes?
I know. I mean, I look great, but inside I was a mess.
Yeah.
And I think I was partying a lot, and I just thought that's how we did it. And I didn't think my ways of knowing was very limited. And but on the big alarm bells rang of like, I was anxious all the time, stressed out, neurotic in my dating life. Like I could hold on to. I was going from toxic relationship to toxic relationship.
Yeah.
I was choosing the wrong people, and I had no self-love at all foundation. And then so the big alarm bells rang when I was like questioning my own existence, and I was like, okay, I need to get help here.
Yeah. How did you, was there a rock bottom moment, or was there a moment of sort of awakening or reckoning where you were like, I actually have to make some significant changes?
There was, and that was after an experience with kind of plant medicine. It kind of like opened my eyes a bit.
Okay.
But more, I was partying, but I was kind of I was very much the control freak of like being able to keep the lives separate, keep lives separately, keep things separate.
Sure.
But again, things were bleeding into each other. And, I wanted to be more authentic in my work as well. And I had a business dispute, and, one thing after another, a relationship breakdown, and it all just come to a point where I was like, okay, there's got to be some sort of vulnerability in what I'm doing here. Come on.
Okay.
And asking for help,
That's really helpful, because I think sometimes we hear stories of healing and self-growth, right? The journey. And there's sometimes, I mean, I asked the question, it's like, was there a moment when you knew, like we kind of hear about the rock bottom moment, but I think sometimes there's not that rock bottom moment. There's just the moment you decide to make a change. And that's really what it's about.
It was creeping up on me. If I was partying a lot, if I didn't do anything, I would have had that horrendous rock bottom moment. But I had maybe several rock bottom moments along the way.
Absolutely.
And then even healing was more rock bottom moments. It wasn't nice,
Right.
Having to like reevaluate dating, reevaluate friendship groups, and how you relate to yourself, and thinking that no one loves you.
Right. So how was dating for you during this time? I mean, you mentioned there was some toxic relationships going maybe from person, or sort of meeting a lot of people. What was dating like? So,
I mean, dating in gay London is quite difficult anyway. Everyone's busy, got other things to do.
Sure.
The scene can be quite small in itself, but people know each other. But I was probably, through no fault of anyone else, I was not choosing the right people, or I was choosing mirrors of myself.
Yeah.
And I also didn't know how to leave a relationship when I felt it wasn't right. And I felt I put, as a lot of my kind of, baggage from family trauma was transferring into relationships. And, I wasn't perfect at all. The other person wasn't perfect either. And I wish them well, love and light and all of that. But, I had to, heal and move forward with it. And only now I'm able to look back and be like, that wasn't the best for me.
Right.
But saying that, it's taught me a lot. These relationships that we have, they can be, quite traumatizing, but you wouldn't be who you are without going through what you've been through.
Yeah, that's true. Right. It's a page in the book, a page in the story.
Perhaps it's the whole, in the grand scheme of things, warming you up to, that universal test, if you wanted to say. So,
yeah. I can see that. And I've had those dating experiences too. And I know the flirties have, where it's like, if you find yourself repeating patterns, you're attracting or you're choosing the same types of people over and over. Like sometimes what happens is we choose people that in our heart of hearts, right? Our intuition is saying this is not the right person for us, but they match us in a way with where they're at in their own self-love and their own healing. And so it sort of gives us a reason to stay where we are, stay stuck in a sense, right? Oh, if I'm with this person, they kind of reconfirm how I feel about myself. And so for a moment, at least it's like misery loves company in a sense. Not that there can't be great, amazing times, but
are you really evolving into the person that you ultimately want to be?
Exactly. And I was always the one, in a way, I didn't realize this at the time, but I'd always focus on others as a way of avoiding focusing on myself.
Oh my God.
And
Me too, Daniel.
I can fix them with all that, I want to provide for them. I can be love for them.
Yes.
And then it was always the attachment theory, attachment styles.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm like classic anxious attachment.
Yeah.
Where I was always choosing avoidant. And that was like,
it's a classic opposites attract pairing, but it's one of the most, harmful in the long run. I mean, it's bad for both the anxious and the avoidant, right? Because neither one can really find congruence in a connection, really find that safety and vulnerability. It's always a little bit of this one person chasing the other person, the avoidant, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any degree of love for myself. Not that I realized this at the time, but I didn't know how to let someone in and love me. The biggest challenge I still have is letting people in and loving me. I think even if I'm honest, even last year I started dating someone. A few dates and I pushed them away. Because he was too nice, I made some excuse up.
I mean, I'm not one to condone violence, but sometimes I say, like, if love came up and slapped you in the face, would you would you recognize it as love if it really made this appearance in your life in a very kind of obvious way? And sometimes that's part of the healing is, do we feel like we're deserving of that love, that appreciation, that affection? All right, I had a couple questions that came to mind so far. Were you, or have you always lived in London?
Yes. Well, I went to university in a town outside, but I pretty much mostly lived in London. I did spend some time in Australia, but mainly London. 20-something years I've been in London.
Okay. Then that changes my next question, because I was wondering if you had the experience of coming from a smaller or mid-sized town and now finding yourself in the big city. And
well, even though I'm an hour outside, I grew up an hour outside London, and it was still very provincial. Like, if, for example, if you put the hookup apps on when I go home, they're very different to coming into London. They're completely different thing. So I was always like, London was in the big lights for me when I was growing up, thinking, I'm going to go there and, be free. And
I think a lot of just people, and I'll say daters, have that experience of they go to university or like they move to the big city for a job or an opportunity or something. And now all of a sudden it seems like they have just infinite choices for who they can date, who they can be, perhaps in a relationship with. And it can be fun, but also kind of overwhelming sometimes.
It's overwhelming, and it's not sometimes. It doesn't work. I mean, I'm still single in 20 years later. So it's quite hard. And also I'm a bit tired. I'm like, when someone says now, do you want to go for a drink? Firstly, I've gone through the kind of sober journey and I don't drink anymore, but also I can't be bothered to it's quite hard to sit there. I get a coffee, great. You don't want more than 2 coffees. So, and it's just, I'm finding I'm at the point in dating where I'm a bit like, okay, I'm tired of this now. I'm not very good with the swiping. I can do it, but I don't get the sense of whether someone's, has the right vibe for me. Over it. And then you have the kind of thing when you're chatting to someone for a while and you finally meet and you go, oh God, there's no chemistry at all.
Exactly.
That's the worst for me. So I try to nip it in the bud quite quickly.
That's a common experience. Like I've sometimes said the dating apps are like the middleman or the middle person between you, right? And so they can present to you daters that you may not otherwise meet, but sometimes it can elongate the dating process in a not so great way, because you find you have this great connection, this great chemistry messaging, and then you meet them and it's just like, that's not so much. So if you're on the apps, they're still apping for some of you. I would say just get to the date sooner rather than later.
Exactly. And with I think sometimes if you leave it too long, you can add more hurdles and more excuses why they're not right for you. And in London as well, you've got to work out, it's quite, for me, I don't really want someone who's partying too much, because I've been there, done that, and it doesn't really suit my lifestyle anymore. No judgment on it, but it's just, we're not going to match. And also likewise, I want someone's not going to judge me for what I meet people who judge me for plant medicine and psychedelics.
Yeah.
They don't really understand. So
it's a difference in lifestyle, right? Just I've been in that phase, but now it's like, wait, you want to go out at 10 p.m. p.m.? Oh God, I don't know about that,
that's
Daniel.
the worst as well. No,
I'll do it if I have to. Sometimes, every now and then. Okay. I want to ask you one more question here, and then we're going to be really getting into body dysmorphia because I want to hear from your point of view more about that. I like teased it on stories, and I got a lot of DMs from the flirties that were really excited for this episode. It seems like this is something they've experienced or they're experiencing right now. But in this self-love healing journey, I think we'll probably come full circle. What were some of the maybe core wounds that you felt were surfacing? Some of those internal beliefs you had about yourself? Like mine is, I'm not good enough. That's always been my number one. Yes. Kind of samskara, my emotional scar, we say in yoga. But to you, Daniel, what was yours?
I think the main theme in life is rejection. Like whether it's being completely rejected at school for, I was taunted in the school corridor, I was fat ginger faggot. That were the three words that used to said to me, I was constantly taunted. So I grew up with this whole like, everyone wants to reject me kind of thing. And that was really living that and experiencing that and also closing off from everyone. This is why I grew this tough exterior, and I didn't let anyone show emotion. I separated work and my work and myself. I always put myself as like, how I thought people should see me rather than actually how I am. I think rejection was a key thing through my life, and I just expected it. And I think that also I fed people with that aura. Or I had this pheromone of like, you can reject me. And so they did. And I was, both in my adult life, I was getting rejected a lot. And so that was in my healing. It was like dealing a lot with what also has happened to me, allowing myself also to feel emotion. Because I blocked out all emotion. I hadn't cried in 20 years. And that was real. Like, I didn't know how to start the waterworks or even approach, and I had all this therapy, but I was just
I think the flirties all over the world will relate to that. I definitely do. That fear of rejection it's a big one, and I think especially if we're teased or bullied growing up as kids, it's like what choice do you have but to toughen up? Like that's you have to defend yourself in some way, either physically or emotionally, like psychologically, right? You have to defend yourself just to survive. And then we progress into adulthood, and it's like, well, if you're dating, if you're trying to form relationships, make connections, a part of that is vulnerability. And if you've got that exterior built up, it's going to be really difficult. And this is where the healing comes in.
Yeah, and that's the kind of scary journey that you go under, and it is painful. And people think healing's all wonderful. I'm in my self-love era,
stars and glitter and shimmers. No,
it can be, but when you go underneath the surface, it bloody hurts. It really, horrible it can be.
Yeah, there's some fantastic moments. There's going to be some really great highs when you have that breakthrough, when you overcome a limiting belief, and you can really prove to yourself that you can just kind of embrace your own authenticity, right? You're not who you've thought you were, but you really are. Like, you can be you and love yourself through it, and that actually that's more than enough.
I think one of the biggest lessons I've had in this healing journey is becoming aware of my shadow.
Oh yeah, okay.
Not just becoming aware of it, but also accepting it and integrating it. Like, where people have obviously called me things or told me I'm this way, that way. It's like, first of all, feeling, well, perhaps I can be sometimes, annoying or whatever it is, but understanding then my intention underneath it.
Yeah.
And also how to integrate it. If like, well, if you don't like me the way I am, the whole of me, then off you go.
Right.
So that's that's how I started to kind of unpick the rejection side of things and become a bit more like whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking to shadow work, where it's like if we have maybe some things about ourselves we perceive as flaws or something we don't like, rather than shame or judge ourselves for those qualities, why not like meet that with some more compassion, with some patience, with some love, and then all of a sudden the things, it's like what we resist persists. Like if we don't like, I don't know, our laugh or something like that, well, that's probably going to be the thing that you focus on and hyperfixate on, and then you don't want to laugh, and then you avoid social situations, and now like, oh God, right? You can see where how life can become more difficult than it should be.
Yeah, and I think it's not to be afraid of what's happening. I mean, one ayahuasca session I had, it just whipped me and told me like all the bad things about me, and I come out going, what was that about? And actually, it was one of the best lessons I've had, because since then I've been able to not necessarily adjust myself, but just become aware of my shadow, and be aware of where I need to, perhaps be different in certain situations, or relaxed or cautious or whatever it is. So it's not to fight it. So.
Right. And we've been, I think, really talking about the emotional kind of physical, or the emotional, more spiritual side of healing. And let's get into the physical side of things as well. This conversation about body dysmorphia too. And so in your words, what is that? Put some context to what that is.
So, body dysmorphia, I don't really love the term, because not many people like to relate to it, but it's, in the kind of medical definition, it's more around like a fixation on your perceived flaws. Some things that others might not even notice, but for some, it can just be very subtle, and it can actually show up in ways, it can be sometimes very obvious where it really limits your behaviors, but in others, it might be very minor where you might subconsciously obsess about certain aspects of your appearance. It could be a muscle size, body fat percentage, or even how you look, or in certain ways. Like, so this is, I pull away a little bit from the medical definition. I think, it's all, important. I didn't necessarily get a diagnosis of body dysmorphia.
Okay.
Perhaps that might have been useful, but I wasn't aware I had body dysmorphia. I just thought it was normal, being a gay man, to criticize or obsess about what I needed to do to look good, to get the kind of gay summer body, or the right muscle size. And I also grew up in a household where dieting was always the norm.
Yeah.
And, the era of the 90s Weight Watchers kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. Atkins, right? No carbs.
Yeah, all of this. So I was really, it's probably why I have become a nutritionist, is because I understood all these diets and stuff. But under the cover, it was causing, body dysmorphia. What it does, it can cause a lot of distress for the individual. It might lead to certain compulsive behaviors, using, stressing out if you miss a gym workout, or excessively using the gym, restrictive eating, comparing yourself, or limiting yourself from going out. For me, what it led to is anabolic steroid use. I'm not here to talk about whether anabolic steroids are good or bad, or, or for people are on testosterone replacement therapy. For me, I abused them. And I saw them as a way not to have to think about my body, because I thought they were just like that. That was the autopilot of how I'm going to manage my body dysmorphia, or I don't have to think about losing. I know I'm going to gain muscle if I take these. I know I'm going to probably feel much better in my body, and I'm on a plan. So I'm going to, because I'm taking them, I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to feel more, have more energy. But I didn't have, I ignored all the side effects and didn't think what can come with it. So I think when body dysmorphia is there, it led me to doing more things to unconsciously be more, to get more self-acceptance, more acceptance from the community. There's quite a lot of pressure in the gay community about how we meant to look, everything, there's such thing as like, if you've heard of gay fat, where,
no fats, no femmes, right? Yes, I've heard of.
Well, exactly. 15% body fat for a straight man is looks great. But if you say to something 15% body fat for a gay man, some people are like, you know. But
the
then
gay gasp, like, what? Yeah.
You know, so it's like gasping. I need to get myself Mykonos ready, summer body, cruise ready, or whatever it is. And
yeah,
I was fully into that big time. I needed to, you know, have a vacation booked in the diary to be able to think about how my body was going to be.
Yeah.
So it shows up completely, you know, completely different, and it's
Okay.
you know, due to many different pressures in the community and external to the community.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's really helpful, and I can definitely relate to your experience as a gay guy. And I think the flirties, no matter how you identify your gender, like body dysmorphia, and I agree, the term is like, ugh, but it's like it's at least a term people understand. I think they've heard of it before, so there's already some familiarity there. And whether you're a girl, you're a guy, right? I think there's different, maybe concepts of body dysmorphia throughout all the different communities. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's really this hyperfixation on physical appearance to, like, you're trying to attain this physical appearance to be liked, to be accepted, for that external validation, regardless of whether the choices you're making to get there are healthy.
Yeah. And I'll add that you never actually get to
get there
of thinking that you're good enough.
Yeah.
Because even when I felt like I was looking back at some photos from 2017, I think, well, Jesus, I was like really ripped and, you know, really muscly. At the time, I thought I was small. I didn't think I was, I didn't think I looked great at all.
Yeah. That is the trickiest thing about body dysmorphia is, like, it actually skews your perception of yourself. Like, you don't have a realistic sort of concept of your body.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. I had no, if you said to me, gave me a compliment, I would be looking back. I'd give you a counter. I'd be like, no, it's not. I need to do this.
Yeah.
It was always what I needed to do. But I was unconscious of all of this. I just was plodding along. And also I had friends who were going through the similar things to me. So I thought it was normal for everyone to just be like, we need to get ready for Pride or ready for this. And
it becomes normalized because everybody else is doing it. So, like, oh, I guess, like, maybe I should too. But I think you're really talking about, it's like that hyperfixation, but that, like, compulsiveness where maybe there's not that little bit of space between your thought and your action. It just almost becomes instinct of, like, I have to do this. I must do this. And then there's that lapse in self-awareness, right? Because you can't change what you're not aware of. You can't, or you're maybe not going to change what's normalized and what it seems like everybody else is doing, and you're comparing yourself. Yeah.
And I'm not saying this, the way I'm describing it for myself is how other people will experience it.
Sure.
But I never let myself rest. You know, it was always whether my body was resting, not my body was always on something or trying to be on a diet or going to the gym, even when I was super tired.
Yeah.
And so, but I completely would, if at the time I would have rejected body dysmorphia, I would have say, oh, it's a really drastic term. It's, you know, but I've made the decision now to kind of be the loud complainer in a silent battle.
Yes.
And it's quite interesting that when I talk to some people completely avoid me now, because either there's two camps. They might either be triggered by me or they might think I've got some big complex, you know, problem. And I don't mind. It doesn't bother me because I made that decision to spread awareness about it. Because I think the problem is in both within and outside the community. And
absolutely,
you know, we have so much pressure to look the way we do.
Yeah, I think the flirties will relate to that. And so from your experience, and then I'll share a little bit about mine too. I mean, I think we talked about it earlier in this episode, but how someone may develop body dysmorphia. Is it something that happens gradually over time, or is it something that maybe can happen in a relatively short period of time? Yeah, what do you think?
Both. I mean, there is some evidence that there is a genetic role, and some people can be more wired with different variations in brain structure.
Okay.
But like it could be more media, social media, and particularly, everyone's got that kind of best filtered foot forward on social media.
Yeah.
People wanting to look better than the best. All these adverts for extreme dieting. I mean, we've got even now with the these weight loss jabs. It's like it's just relentless. We're constantly showing what we need to do to look different, but also in the community standards, whether it's within the queer community or outside, and also what someone has experienced through their life, whether they've had a lot of trauma or bullying growing up, whatever wounds. They don't necessarily have to be directly related to their body,
right?
But trauma, indirect, whatever trauma has happened to someone, can lead someone to use their body as a way to maybe weaponize their body almost, which will become obsessed with how they use their body as a numbing tool as well.
Yeah.
So might be not being able to sit with their thoughts, not being able to be super anxious.
Yeah.
So using certain control mechanisms, such as either restricting food or exercising a lot, or and it's all there's so many different factors, and they could act individually or they could all merge together as one. So again, it can be so subtle, but also it can be very profound.
That's really helpful that your concept of yourself can develop through experienced traumas throughout our life. It could happen right as a result of a singular event or trauma, something that happens that's happened relatively recently. And so if you felt like you've experienced a change in how maybe you view yourself all of a sudden, right, something to notice and just be aware of. And so I should say disclaimer, we're not psychiatrists, but we can share from our own experience. And I love that coaching can exist outside of sort of these traditional maybe frameworks like the DSM, and we can talk about our experiences that I know the flirties will relate to. Yeah, because ultimately we're just talking about life.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the way we think about our bodies is so influenced by the clothes we wear, what size they are. Size 10 or 12 in dress sizes for females vary across the spectrum. They have vanity sizing. We're conditioned that January we should all be going on a diet. When we're on vacation, we all start thinking about the way what we're going to do for our diet on the way back. Social media, the health and supplement industry is worth billions. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely.
And all these people have their best. If you look like I want to look like a trainer, that's what they do for their job. And you don't know what's in their lived experience or their lifestyle. So it's the pressure that we have to look good is immense. And I think it's also, if someone's listening to this and thinking, well, let's take a step back from my own ego and think, what do I do? What is my perception of my body? Just ask yourself, maybe, how do you feel about diets? Do you try a lot of them? How do you feel about exercise? What also is your attitude around resting and not exercising? If you haven't been to the gym for the day, what happened? And also like around the whole, other end of the spectrum of binge eating and anorexia and things like that, because it all bleeds in. So I think what I'm trying to say is just have a real honest conversation with yourself, and think, what if you learn to think about why you think the way you do. That's quite important in unpicking.
Absolutely. And I hope this conversation is helpful, and you don't have to do this alone, right? Reach out to a coach, a supportive person, a professional, a practitioner, right? Like, especially if you are engaging in some behaviors like anorexia or bulimia, like it's something to take very, very seriously. And I want to come back to a word you mentioned a moment ago, which was control. And I think sometimes when we feel like our lives are out of control, or there's so much in our external environment, maybe in our relationships, in our career, our education, that we can't control, we try and bring some semblance of control to a very maybe chaotic or unpredictable situation, which could be just life. And you can more or less control aspects of your body, right? You could restrict food or not. You can count calories. You can spend so much time in the gym. You could work on this muscle group. And I want to make the quick distinction between, being healthy being a relative term, right? Whatever healthy means and looks like to you, it's just about feeling good in your skin, right? There's no one definition or one way of looking that's healthy. So, I just wanted to add that, but it's for me so much. It was about, I just wanted to control how I felt about myself and how other people may perceive me, and that's where a lot of my body dysmorphia came from.
And that's exactly it. Like if you can control certain aspects of it, you're less likely to be. Well, for me personally, I was less likely to be criticized for X, one else, and then or liked more, being accepted by people that I thought were my friends or whatever it was.
And then less likely to be rejected, right?
Yeah. So that's the whole rejection thing coming in.
Yeah. So. I completely get that. And I wanted to talk about here for just a moment, external validation. We've been touching on it throughout this conversation, where it's like some external validation is like, I don't want us to totally villainize that, right? You do good on a project or on a test or something, or right, you are going through a glow up phase and you've been hitting the gym. Like you want to hear like, damn, you look good, right? Great job kind of thing, like looking good or whatever. That's fantastic. But when like, it's nice to get good feedback, right? It just feels good. But when your entire identity is based on whether someone else kind of quote unquote approves of you, that's where that's when we get into sticky territory.
And at that point, someone can quite easily pull the rug underneath you. Yes. Just by the slightest comment. And you could feel, you're feeling great. And someone might say, well, you could improve this. And I would have fixated so much on, I'm not good enough in this aspect. I don't fit your tick box.
Exactly.
And it was always often that if I got feedback, it was from people that I wouldn't necessarily now classify as having the right to give me feedback,
Right. It's like that. Would you want to be them? No. Then why do you care what they do?
I know. And it's like, because it goes back to control. I want to control everyone's view of me. Based on my history of rejection. But if I'm going out to the gym, if I'm going to the gym and I'm eating well, someone gives me a compliment, great.
Yeah.
Now I can accept the compliment. Maybe 5 years ago, I would have gone, but I would excuse the compliment or got embarrassed or then thought what I need to do to look better.
Yes.
Better than better,
Yeah, or you use I've done this, some self-deprecating humor where you play it off and sort of make a negging joke about yourself kind of thing, or you just dismiss it. You don't even, like, ultimately, if someone gives you a compliment and you're working on your healing and you're uncomfortable, just say thank you. Just say thank you and move on. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to hear that, but
yes.
And also like when you can tell, it's like the difference also is like if someone said to me, you look great 5 years ago, what are you taking to look great? I probably wouldn't want that compliment now. I mean, it's more about, especially with my body, it's not necessarily now, it's about what my body can do in terms of if I can do certain, like I love yoga, and if I can get into a pose and I get a compliment about that, that's really good for me. But if I'm, someone asking me now about how big my arms are, I don't care.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Daniel, come to my yoga class.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll be teaching later today. How quickly can you get here from London?
It might be a bit of a struggle.
It might be a bit of a stretch, yeah. We do have directs, but anyway, one more question here, and then we're going to come full circle back to healing, getting into some plant medicine discussion, because I know the flirties, at least a few of them, they're out there dating. So how might body dysmorphia impact our dating lives?
I
mean, that could be a whole episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, with body dysmorphia, there needs to be some, dating can be a very tumultuous experience in terms of, like, you don't have any, you may not have much confidence.
Yeah.
You might not put yourself out there. Flirting might be very difficult for you because what someone else sees. Particularly also with in gay relationships, both of you might have body dysmorphia concerns in manifesting in different ways, and it's how they both bounce off each other. How you might navigate compliments, receive affection. Letting someone love you is probably the real struggle. And acknowledging that, realizing that you're not perfect, or also not picking holes in the other person all the time. The self-sabotage of, like, how I've experienced before of pushing people away when you're just in this ball of anxiety because you're single and you're already stressing about how your body looks. And then someone's also getting close to you. And then there's also this physical intimacy aspects of it. Where can you let go and just actually enjoy sex, or is it a performative? Or, like what I've done before, is disassociate during sex. It's kind of like just like completely like hurry up and get over with it. And feeling like I have to, like, I might enjoy it, but my head's somewhere else, because I can't bring myself into my body to be able to experience sex the way it should be. So I think it's like the key things here are having the courage to be vulnerable. With not necessarily being that one that's always going on about their body and how they feel, but if you feel that meet the right partner, it's about understanding how they understand your self-perception, and what barriers to intimacy there are, and see if you can both work through it. But other side of it is, having that checklist of, like, what type of relationship am I choosing? Am I choosing something that's going to make me more anxious? For me now, if I feel my golden rule is how's my nervous system? If my nervous system is somewhat elevated, if my body is telling me it's not good in that situation, then I will. I also avoided relationships for a long time. I avoided, particularly during healing. It wasn't like, it's a lot of overwhelm for me. But there's sabotage, the physical. So it's a bit of it's a huge subject. But the ultimate advice I have to say is just be curious about it, and also go super easy on yourself. Is like,
definitely,
we push ourselves into these roles of having to play this part of the relationship. And yes, relationships are about physical appearance, but there's also so much more to someone than that. And if you also let someone in, that's important too.
That's all really good. So flirties, if you're dating, a couple things that I heard were that you can date and still be on your self-love journey at the same time. So if you find yourself getting into, you're on a date and maybe you get a compliment and that's making you uncomfortable, just say, like, thank you. And then turn it right back around, ask a question or two about the other person. And then after the date, just reflect on it a little bit, call up a friend or journal about it, and just kind of get that experience out, work on the self-love piece too, alongside dating. And then also when it comes to, if you're having sex when you're dating, many of us are, not all of us, but a lot are, don't feel like you have to rush the physical intimacy, because you may overwhelm your nervous system, which is what I used to do as well. And then I would disassociate and I would just try and make it, I would just try and, like, get through it. in a sense, right? When in reality, what I would have preferred to do was not rush, because that's just where I was at.
Exactly. And even if it's like me, I took a break from dating because I just wanted to reevaluate how I understood relationships to be. Exactly. I really didn't want to go back in time and start having any. I refuse to have any sort of toxic relationship now. That's a choice.
Yeah, that is a choice.
You can walk away from. Yeah, I couldn't walk away before.
And a good choice as well. All right, let's spend the last bit of the interview talking about healing. And so, how about? Let me ask this question first. Well, first, a disclaimer. We're going to be talking about some plant medicine here at the end. So I have a medical disclaimer. I'm going to read it for the flirties.
Okay, go for it.
Delulu is the Salulu. Just kidding. That's not the disclaimer. This is all our experiences, flirties. If you're going to be seeking out plant medicine, please do so safely and maybe work with a practitioner of sorts. All right, Daniel. So what's plant medicine?
So plant medicine is a term given to compounds known as psychedelics that help expand consciousness. So these could be things like, we might have heard of magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, which is a brew from the Amazon. Or there's other ones also in the psychedelic space, but the two we may know the ones we may know about are LSD, mushrooms, ayahuasca.
Yes.
So just to give you a bit of background, I did a master's where my thesis was on psychedelics and healing. So this is where the reason for that is because they were at a fundamental point. Pivotal. It gave me a huge shift in my healing. I was in therapy for maybe 6-7 years beforehand, and I got to the point, I'm still in therapy, and I think therapy is hugely essential working with someone, especially for psychedelic journeys of helping you integrate it. But they just wasn't pushing me beyond like what I needed to heal. They just like the nature of what psychedelic actually means. It means to reveal. And so it just revealed it reveals the textbook of self-love of like, this is what you need to do. Here's the course that you need to go on. But it allowed me really to feel my feelings, remember trauma that I'd even forgotten about, and also, most important, forgive. And, I've got that stubborn Irish heritage where, I'll hold a resentment for, 500 years, the next life. But it allows you to bypass that and allows you to it allowed me to forgive and also forgive myself for everything I put myself through, which allowed me to be a bit more softer on myself. Yes, in the process of it, you can rebuild, you start to have those, you don't suddenly do a psychedelic trip and become perfect the next day. Right. You can start slipping back into old patterns. So you have to do it with psychedelics. You have to become it's a task. You do the trip, you learn, and then it's also the setting that you do the trip in as well. Doing something like a psychedelics trip with friends, you might just end up laughing and just having a good time. If you do it with intent with a professional, you might, or on a retreat, the deeper healing occurs. So it's they've been very profound but also on the top of this, psychedelics obviously are controlled substances. So and also the big issue with control with psychedelics. So you have to be able to learn to let go of control. And so it's going to be very tough. And like me, you might be shown things that you might not like. You might be shown things that you might have done wrong in the past, or confronting and having accountability. So easing yourself into it is super important, but there's ways to get into the kind of psychedelic state without taking anything, and that's something called breath work. And the breath work, conscious connected breathing, is particularly one I do, and it allows you to almost you can stop if it gets too much. It's free. You can use your breath. It's legal. It's so, and it's really good to even do for 5-10 minutes a day, just to kind of calm anxiety. If you're going on a date, perhaps, and you're getting anxious and stressed out, doing some sort of breathing exercise can help with that. But the whole psychedelic world It's coming more into the forefront. Even Oprah talked about this last week or something.
Yep.
So we're looking, but it's about you're not going to have psychedelics aren't going to work for you as like a magic bullet. You still have to do all the work and what comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Do you have a couple extra minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Because I have some follow-up questions. I mean, Flirties, if you're looking for a professional to help you with your plant medicine journey or looking for like where to get started, maybe call Daniel.
You can reach out to me on my Instagram. That's the first thing to do. With something like body dysmorphia, I have a book coming out in October this year.
Amazing.
So I already have my first books on the LGBTQ plus community and nutrition and lifestyle. And the second book is on body dysmorphia.
Oh, it's called congratulations.
Thank you.
And when it comes to plant medicine, are there any contraindications? So if someone is maybe on existing medication, psychiatric medication, would this be a choice for them?
So with certain psychedelic medications, you say, for instance, ayahuasca, you can't be taking certain SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressant medications, antipsychotic medications.
Okay.
But even if you are, and even if you're not taking anything, but you're concerned, I would always suggest speaking to your psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, and getting them to say, right, well, yes, this is okay. But likewise, if you're picking a retreat to go on, some of them have psychologists on the retreat.
Yes.
And they will give you, they always have help. It's helpful if they give you a screening beforehand, integration on the retreat, and they're guiding you during the process. It can, that's important.
Yeah, that's important too. Yeah, I've been on my psychedelic journey now for almost a year.
Oh, cool.
And I chose mushrooms. So psilocybin, the active, right? That's the active ingredient. In the mushrooms. And it's so interesting. You described this process, or you described the psychedelics being about a reveal. And that's exactly, it's like my healing has always been very physical. And what I've experienced when I do magic mushrooms, I've always pretty much microdosed. I haven't done like a hero's dose or like some larger dose. So we're talking, a dose in the micrograms, maybe like, 0.2, 0.3 micrograms, I believe, something like that. Enough to have that subperceptual experience, but still go on about your day. So I've definitely gone on about my day sometimes on mushrooms, but it's been, I'm not on mushrooms right now, but it's been like a shedding for me. Like I feel this physical shedding where it's almost like an outer layer of skin, or just like a weight is being lifted off my shoulders. And along with that shedding, even though that has felt very physical, it's been these shifts in mindset and these shifts in how I feel about myself and how I think about myself. And it's been gradual, right? There hasn't been like this aha experience where like I did a trip, a microdose, and then I woke up the next morning and like, oh, I'm healed. Like, oh, I feel amazing. It hasn't been like that, but it has been very helpful in really moving the needle as someone that's been depressed for really my whole life and was on antidepressants, all kinds, for decades. I mean, 2 decades. And a part of my story I haven't told, and I'm not prepared to even tell it today, is that experience of getting off psychiatric medication was the most difficult, honestly, horrific thing I've ever experienced. And I don't want to instill fear in the Flirties if they're on them right now, or if they're trying to transition off, because I recognize that they have been very helpful for a lot of people. I also know my experience, they weren't helpful for me, but I so wanted them to be, because I wanted them to be the fix. I wanted them to I just wanted to feel better. That was it. And now I've discovered mushrooms, and they're kind of working for me, Daniel.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I think even the problem in the UK, I don't know, it depends in different states, is that they're illegal in the UK. So it's hard.
You can, I don't know how, but you can buy them here off the internet.
Okay.
Like from legitimate companies, and they will ship it to your door.
Because there's some states where it's legal. I think if you're not even prepared to go down the psychedelic route or even microdosing route.
Oh, yeah.
the most important thing is just start being curious about why you think the way you do. Don't just have the attachment of like, I've got issues with my body, I've got anxiety, I've got depression. Why? Ask yourself, journal, try and trace everything back. And you can then work with people to, heal. Healing is possible. Just got to actually get it.
Yeah, coming back to that intention. Yeah, if you are like, if you want to microdose or whatever, thinking like, oh, this is going to be the thing that fixes me, I think you're setting yourself up to perhaps be disappointed, right? That's not, they're a tool, they're a teacher that can help, but they're not gonna fix in the sense that they don't take or replace you actually doing the work too.
Exactly.
Like you still gotta do all the self-love healing and
and you'll still get triggered. You're still going to.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's still going to be people that piss you off or and so it's learning how to navigate that, and that's what the healing journey is about.
Yeah. And I think you're going to become much more resilient. So like when you have those experiences where maybe you fly off the handle or you spiral into anxiety and it feels like you almost have this hangover that can last for hours, for days, even weeks, like as your nervous system is just trying to get back to equilibrium, I think you're going to have just more resilience in your everyday lived experiences where things that used to bother you just don't. Right? Thoughts you used to have about yourself, they don't have that kind of weight. Like you catch yourself being negative or critical towards you and you're like, hold up. Yep. I can actually shift and change this in the moment. I have the self-awareness and the courage to do so because I love myself and I want to give myself the best life I possibly can.
Exactly. And if you are still struggling, think about anything you can do to calm your nervous system.
Yes.
That's the point at the moment. That's the first steps, I would say.
Do some breath work. Don't hold your breath forever, but do some breath work. Come take a yoga class with me. Call up Daniel. This has been a fantastic conversation. Any final words or parting thoughts for the Flirties?
I think it just, the one word that's just coming to me is the best bit of advice is just follow authenticity in whatever you do. That's that's the best lesson I've had, is if you're feeling feeling in a place where you can't be yourself, it's not the right place. So this is if it's a date, if it's a workplace, if it's an event, whatever it is, it's just, follow and listen to yourself. Your body will tell you what's going on, and also your body listens. Yeah. So what I've learned is that don't ever tell your body, negative things, because it will listen and it will follow it in. So give yourself love, Well,
I love ending on that note about authenticity. Final question, where can the Flirties find out more about you?
So my Instagram, Naked Nutritionist.
Okay.
And on my website is danieloshaughnessy.com. So you'll find me on there.
All right. I will have those links and the show notes below for the episode. Daniel O'Shaughnessy, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
All right, Flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations. Thank you so much to our guest, Daniel O'Shaughnessy, for coming on to the show today to share so much about his experiences, not only with body dysmorphia, with plant medicine, but also about his journey with self-love. I hope you got some great takeaways from this conversation as I did. And check out Daniel's socials. Yeah. So much great stuff. Never being called. Feel called to work with him. All those links are in the show notes below for this episode. Thank you to you, the Flirties, for tuning in, for streaming, for listening. Wherever you may be in the world, could not do any of this without you. Thank you so much for listening. Yes. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Share this episode or another favorite episode of yours with a friend, a family member, a coworker, even someone you mildly like, someone you want to share some BFE, Big Flirt energy with. I love you for it. If you've rated the show, thank you so much. Yeah, Apple, Spotify, you can leave 5 stars. Yeah, great number. Apple, you can leave a written review. On Spotify, you can leave a comment with each episode. And on YouTube, if you're listening there, hello, you can give it a thumbs up. Okay, and comment as well on YouTube. All right, I think that is it for me officially here at Flirt Headquarters signing off. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra Flirty. Happy flirting.